Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Woon, and I am your co host for today's episode of YMyHealth. And today's guest is Elizabeth Rudd. She is the founder and owner of Well Equipt, which is a physical therapy company in Atlanta, Georgia. And today we are going to be talking about the benefits of physical therapy for millennials and talk a little bit about some of the practices that makes Well Equipt unique. So, welcome to the podcast, Elizabeth, or Dr. Rudd. Which would you prefer?
Elizabeth is good, but thank you. So excited to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. I think uh, just in my own personal experience, I found that as I've started to get older, I definitely can see my body physically changing in ways where physical therapy could definitely be useful. But maybe we can start with a little bit about your story and what inspired you to start Well Equipped.
Yeah, I graduated physical therapy school in 2016 up in New York, and I came home to Atlanta, got my first job, was super excited. This is like my dreams came true. I've been wanting to be a physical therapy since I was 13 years old. I just thought it was like the coolest profession ever. You're not at a desk, you're active, you get to work with athletes. It's just you get to use your brain, you get to practice medicine, all the cool things. So I started my first job, and within about a year and a half, I had burnt out completely. Like crying myself to sleep. I was working so many hours, I was working weekends, and I just kind of felt like I was on the rat race of like, what's next? And as physical therapists, especially in the orthopedic world, outpatient orthopedics, which is where my specialty lies, it's once you enter into the profession, you're kind of at the ceiling of your profession. There's no climbing the ladder. There's really nowhere else to go. You're a practicing physical therapist. So after a year and a half, I just remember thinking there must be a better way. Like, I want to do this forever. This is the coolest profession, and this is not sustainable. And I had looked at other jobs, and other jobs, it was the same thing. You start a new job and you were running the same rat race. So I knew that one day I wanted to start a family and be a mom. I knew I wanted to be a PT. And I was like, somehow this has to work. I will not give up. So thus Well Equipped Physical Therapy was born. And my whole goal was to be able to help active adults or athletes or anybody with aches and pains get out into the community, educate our community on what we can do, and that it's not just an injury or a post surgical issue that we help with, and do it in a way that makes sense as the provider as well. I wanted to really practice just balanced wellness, which is our number one core value. I wanted to be able to be a mom and be a PT and help people all at the same time.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that, work-life balance obviously so important, and especially within the millennial age group, I think something we can all sympathize with, just being something of value for us, especially in our careers.
Absolutely.
Well, I think what I've seen in my experience is a lot of millennials don't really think about physical therapy until they're injured, or unless they've been really, really active or maintained a level of activity with sports, or some other kind of, you know, physical engagement. And so I was curious about why you think it should really be a part of a proactive wellness routine, especially for people, in their 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to go with this. There are people that are actively training daily for hours on end and they're working towards a goal or peak performance, and there's so much that physical therapy can do for that. Take golf, for instance. You've got a very rotational sport that requires a lot of mobility, a lot of stability, strength, and power. And we as physical therapists know the biomechanics of the body, how the body moves, what its muscles are supposed to be being used and when, and what's overworking versus underworking. And so if you're talking about like peak performance and fitness, we have a specialty piece of knowledge there where we can really help athletes know what muscles to work and what's going to kind of move the needle there. And we also have a very strategic approach to recovery and rest and stress. And, we work, right? And so there's only so much time to work out, and we've got to be strategic and efficient with that time to work out as well to kind of give us the biggest bang for our buck. But there's also a lot of us who are working, we're stressed. We just want to be healthy. We want to go to the Barry's boot camp or the Pilates place, and we just want to work out and feel good and go get through a work day without aches and pains, and that's totally normal. We see it all the time as well. So, I think for us, and I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a PT, but you go out for drinks or a social setting or a birthday party and people ask what you do. I say I'm a physical therapist, and it takes them less than 60 seconds to be like, oh, well, my shoulder. Let me just ask you this question. Like everybody has a question. And there's just so many of those questions that we can answer and help with.
Absolutely. I think, you know, people who aren't even athletes and maybe it's not a physical activity, you hear people who are talking about stress or the physical toll that like sitting at a desk takes on the body over time, screen time, all of these things that are tied to a lot of 9 to 5 kind of modern lifestyles. How do you see physical therapy help issues like that?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that we're seeing right now is just a lot of static positioning, meaning you sit at a desk, you're on the computer, you're driving, you're in traffic, you're not moving as much throughout the day. And the demand that that places on the body and the muscles throughout the body, it can be very fatiguing and it can be repetitive in its own self. So, with those that are 9 to 5 desk job, you're straining your muscles just sitting there. And you're also locking your joints up. They're not moving, they're not getting lubricated, they're not getting what they need or crave throughout the day. And so physical therapy can play a massive role in just helping prevent those aches and pains, help strengthen the postural muscles, make sure that while we're sitting, so our glutes are lengthened, which means when we go try to work out and work our glutes, they're going to have a harder time contracting for us, right? So we've got to teach people how to find their glutes and what your core is and how to breathe properly. There's so many things that we can incorporate into daily lives that can really make a huge difference on our bodies and our longevity and our fitness.
Is there any kind of like movement or specific stretch or like workout um, activity that you recommend for people to be doing daily or maybe weekly?
I say movement is medicine. Like, truly, when I talk to people, I'm like, what do you enjoy? What will you do? What sounds good to you? And then let's hone in there. Like, just don't sit around and do nothing all day. Don't rest it. That's really like the best, cleanest answer I can give you. We can get deep into like, okay, you sit all day and you've got forward shoulders and you're hunched over. Well, we need to be doing some extension rotation based stretches. And all it needs to be is like 1 to 2 minutes a day that will give you a significant benefit. But there's all kinds of little tricks that I can give to you depending on like what the goal is and what you enjoy and what you like to do.
Maybe if we're talking about like posture or just like aging well, I think that's something that we hear a lot from our audience is like main concerns for their lifestyles. Is there anything there for those people that might be useful?
Yeah, I think when it comes to posture, it always comes down to mobility and strength, right? Posture, it's all about just decreasing all of this like forward, down, and in. So I always will tell people, let's work in the opposite. Let's open up, stretch the shoulders and mid back, get your head back because we all like to hold our head forward and then gravity pulls on our body and our spine. So open up, get back. And then the other part of that is, okay, so now you have that mobility because I gave you 2 stretches for that. Now you have to teach your muscles how to keep that mobility. So then 2 posture exercises. And usually that's just some kind of scap squeeze with resistance. There's a lot of things in the gym that you can do. But yeah, 1 or 2 stretches just to get your mobility and get you open, and then 1 or 2 strengthening exercises to help you maintain that opening. And I think the biggest thing that's been lost along the way is that everybody comes in and they're like, I know I need to stretch more. I know I need to stretch more. And most of the time, I'm like, no, your mobility is decent. Your strength is terrible. You don't know how to activate your core and you don't know how to activate your postural muscles. And so there's a lot of strengthening that I feel like maybe in the last maybe this year I've seen a lot more emphasis on the benefits of strength training, but I do think that stretching has kind of been the main focus when strengthening needs to be just as important.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. I think very much have experienced that of like you need to be stretching, you need to be stretching. And it's like, well, I feel pretty flexible. And, these symptoms or things that I'm still feeling are here. And so, yeah, that strength piece feels so core to all of this.
Absolutely.
Um, I guess in line with that, are there any signs or symptoms specifically that, if you hear someone talking about that, you know, physical therapy is maybe the recommendation of what they're looking for to satisfy those issues?
Yeah, I would say, in terms of orthopedics, so muscles, joints, bones, which is what I do, really anytime something aches for more than a couple days and doesn't go away, that's your key to at least see a PT. We're trained to also essentially triage. Like we can ask all the right questions and do all the right assessments to be like, yes, this is a musculoskeletal problem. I do this all day, every day. I can help you. Or, hey, this looks a little funky. It's not musculoskeletal. I'm a little concerned. Here's the type of doctor that you need to see. The other thing with Well Equipped is I have really prided myself or ourselves on being easily accessible. So I always tell people, come in, let's take a look. I can ask you the questions. We can do an eval. If it's a PT thing, we'll keep you in house. If it's not, we refer you out. But anything that's an ache or a pain that doesn't subside in say 4 to 6 days, I'm gonna say I want to see you.
Yeah. I was looking on the website and noticed that you offer both in office and remote coaching. And I found that interesting because I'd always had, I guess, a preconceived notion that if you were going to do physical therapy, you had to be physically together in person. And so I was curious if you could talk a little bit about what physical therapy looks like in a remote setting.
Yeah, this was, the birth of remote physical therapy during COVID, of course, because it was like everybody's entire life was flipped upside down. You're at home, you're working at a terrible workstation because you're on a laptop, which is like ergonomically not cool at all. It's like, are you going to crush your wrists or your neck? I don't know. Take your pick. And people are they're running and they haven't run before because they can't go to the gym, or they're playing golf and they haven't golfed before. So there's just a lot of things that kept popping up that I found, well, let's just go remote. Let's see what happens. And I found that it was actually really easy just from a conversation and a visual perspective. I could really tell like what was going on, probably. And by having a quick evaluation, asking the right questions, seeing some movement, I could put together a program remotely for those people to at least get you 80% better. If not fully, I could get a good way. Nothing's going to really replace that hands-on work where we can really feel and touch and make a difference there. But movement is medicine, and if we can at least initiate that, we've got a massive piece under control there. So typically for us, I will do a quick session most of the time just to make sure it's musculoskeletal, right? Can I help you with the movement and what movements are going to be most beneficial for you? And then we program through a platform called True Coach, which is super user friendly. It's amazing. It's all of videos of us, me and my team. The nice thing is we're doing the exercise and we are verbally cueing exactly how we want it done, how to look for if there's a mistake and what exactly you're trying to get out of that particular exercise. And I think if people have that piece of knowledge and that verbal cueing, it also makes a big difference. So I typically will program out a month. It'll be some mobility, some stability. I'll meet you where you're at if you want to do a customized one. And we also have pre-made ones where it's just postural work. And we know, hey, you're going to work your scap stabilizers, your core, your mobility, or golf. We're going to work on rotational things. So, just a lot of ways to put together things that we see every day here in the clinic and that we do with our patients and give them to more people and reach more people online.
That's awesome. I love that approach. We've talked a little bit or just touched on briefly throughout the conversation golf. And one of the things that I think is unique to your practice is this golf physical therapy focus. Or at least for me, I'd never seen anything like that before. And so I wanted to ask you how this came about specifically and what that looks like for a client who's maybe coming to you for golf physical therapy specifically.
Yeah, this is such a good question because it's kind of a funny answer. But my background in high school and college, I played basketball and I also was a cheerleader and did gymnastics. really fun sports, super awesome. However, not great sports to continue as you age. So I realized in physical therapy school that I'm not going to be tumbling for much longer. And I'm also not going to go like play pickup basketball, maybe play horse or shoot some hoops like somewhere where I find a basketball hoop or court. And so I felt like, okay, well, golf is really cool from a mechanic standpoint, super nerdy here on the PT hat on. I want to learn more about it. And also, a lot of people do that as they age. So it was kind of a win win. Um, so I went deep into the golf swing, the mechanics, what your body needs to have a good pain-free golf swing. I did a certification through Titleist, actually went to a couple of their seminars and certifications, and I just really loved it. Um, that being said, I graduated PT school, started a business a year and a half after graduated. COVID hit. I became a mom of two boys and I grew my practice. And all through that, I have zero time, and golf takes a lot of time and commitment to get very good at and to get out on the course. So, I had every intention of transitioning into golf as a player myself, but really have just hit every roadblock of time to get there. But amongst all of that, my husband plays a ton of golf. My dad, a lot of my patients were playing a lot of golf, and I had the background certifications from Titleist. So that just grew. Once you can get a golfer playing pain free and improving their swing, hitting it farther and more consistent, they're going to tell their friends, they're going to come in, they're going to want to know what the secret sauce is.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the more common physical limitations you see in maybe immature golfers who are coming into you in their 30s or 40s?
Yeah. Um, so the primary limitations I see all the time are hip mobility. You have to have so much hip mobility, and because we sit or you're a runner or you don't work out your legs, whatever it may be, our hip mobility as a whole society tends to be pretty terrible. Same as hip mobility, that's terrible. Our mid back mobility, because again, we sit, we're forwards, we're on screens, we're driving, we're always in this hunched over position. So our mid back mobility isn't able to extend and rotate. And then we have a lot of people who have trouble finding their glutes and strengthening their glutes. And they say the glutes are the king of the swing. So that's your power, that's your distance. And then your mobility, that's your pain free playing. If you think about it, more a longer lever arm over a long period, like a further distance, is going to get you more power and more force. So you have to have more mobility to have more power. And so those are the three main things that we see. And then in our younger golfers, they have the mobility, they just don't have the strength. And they don't know how to recruit their glutes, and they're just cranking through with everything else under the sun to cheat.
Yeah. Uh, your program online, it mentioned, from stiff to inconsistent to strong and unrestricted. And I think, do you have kind of like a success story that captures that transformation?
The funny thing, we have several, of course, but the funny thing is you'll have like a success story one week, and then the next week they'll come back and be like, I played like crap. And I'm like, well, why? What happened? They're like, it's just between the ears. Like I can't get, it's like all mental. So you see the performance improve from like a body mechanic standpoint, and they'll start telling you, like, I know how to like get through it. I'm rotating better. I'm finding the muscles that need to be active to get me to hit farther. But then the next week they'll be like, I just played terrible. I couldn't figure it out. Like, what was I
Overthinking.
doing? So yeah, we tend to see distance. That is a pretty clear success point. But in terms of the actual game, it's a tough game.
Yeah, totally. Well, I have a few last questions, mostly about, you know, well equipped, generally speaking. Um, you talked a little bit about just like kind of customizing programs for people based off of where they're at. Um, I'm curious what that looks like. So, if you're somebody who's like really starting at the bottom versus somebody who's got a lot of physical, activity and experience, how does that change the programming that you're going to recommend?
Yeah, that's the beauty of our practice, we have a full hour with our patients every time they come in. So we really have a very deep understanding of where they are and where they're going. And we can make a very customized plan to get there. I would say, just to give a few examples, the patients that have waited for like a decade to get physical therapy and they come in with 5 different body parts hurting and they've been hurting for like 12 years. Those are the people where I will sit down and be like, I hear you. I understand where you're coming from. I know that you want to be active, that you want to age well, but we're going to be friends and we're going to see each other once a week for a few weeks here to get started. Once we get everything under control and, get things managed like pain and a good exercise program, then a lot of it's on you. You're going to go to the gym, you're going to do your exercises at home, and then you're going to come back in. We're going to reevaluate. We're going to see where you are progress wise, and we're going to make a change, and then you're off again. So those chronic patients that come in with complex, let's call them just complex impairments where they have multiple body parts that they're wanting to work on, those people are going to be in our office fairly consistently up front, and then we're going to back off of their frequency and treatment. Then there's going to be like the 12-year-old that sprains his ankle comes in. We give them a full hour, and we just say, hey, here's what you did. Here's what you're going to do. I want to see you one more time. As long as you do these exercises, you're going to be good to go. Maybe we'll watch you run and make sure that you're hopping, running, and jumping appropriately, but it's going to be a much quicker plan of care. Then you've got people that come in and they're like, I'm not hurting too much, but I tweaked my neck last night. I just wanted somebody to take a look at it. Those are more of the acute patients where they come in and they're like, I just slept funny and something hurts. Typically, those are going to be a quicker plan of care as well. We're going to tackle the issue as it arises, and then we're going to keep them on for a few weeks, not consistently, but over time, just to make sure that that problem doesn't come back and that we can strengthen what needs to be strengthened and mobilize what needs to be mobilized. Then you've got people that just want to work out and they want your brain and your mind and they want your programming. And so there's some consistency there, but that's because that's what their goal is. Their goal is to work out with a PT and get stronger healthily. So there are a lot of ways to program our plan of care, and that's part of the fun.
Amazing. Where can listeners go if they want to learn more about your program, about Well Equipped, or connect with you directly?
Yeah, so we're most active on Instagram at well.equipped. I also tend to be active myself at Elizabeth S. Rudd. You can also check out our website. We've got some great information at wellequippedpt.com. And then I'm always available for communication on any of the socials and via email, which is on our website.
Amazing. And I know you guys have a physical location, but you're in the process of moving, which is very exciting. So by the time this episode comes out, I think you'll be in the new spot. Can you let people know where you're headed?
Yeah, let's hope, right? So we're moving just about a mile up the road from where we're currently located in Buckhead. So we'll be off Roswell Road, and it'll be hopefully a seamless transition. And we're super excited to have a bigger space and some upgraded amenities.
Awesome. Well, is there anything I haven't asked you today that you feel like is important to emphasize or that you want to note?
I would say my biggest, just what I love to shout from the rooftop is that pain is not normal. It's not a normal part of aging. So if you're hurting or you've got some aches, ask a PT. I know they would love to help and share whatever they can share to help you work through it. But pain is not normal. So if you're experiencing it, ask a PT, please.
Awesome. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us today. This was amazing. Uh, I think, excited to hear how people react because I think, like I said, that golf piece is so interesting. But I mean, I'm definitely one of those people who is pretty bad about leaning over, being at a desk, all of those things. And this just reminds me about, practicing that strength training piece because the flexibility is there. So thank you so much again for joining us. And like Elizabeth said, you can find her on Instagram with the business Instagram or her personal and the website. And otherwise, tune back in next week for another great episode. If you've liked today's episode, we just ask that you support us by liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing wherever you're listening. And if you're interested in giving us any recommendations on new topics or you're curious about our business sponsorship opportunities, go to the YMyHealth website and reach out to us on the Contact Us form. And we will see everybody next week. Thanks.